Call to order here in the North Canton Planning Commission meeting. It is May 1st, 2024, and it is 7:01 p.m. The first item on tonight's agenda is our roll call. Amanda, good?
Mr. Dalpace,
Here.
Mr. Mahousen,
Here.
Mr. Sarah,
Present.
Mr. LePage,
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here. Okay, next item on the agenda is our minutes for consideration. We have our April 9, 2024 meeting minutes for approval. If there's no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mahousen,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Dalpace,
Yes.
Mr. Sarah,
Yes.
Mr. LePage.
Yes. All right, next item on the agenda is a public hearing. This is an opportunity to be heard for any interested person on an ordinance amending Chapter 1131, Parks and Institutional District, retitling Section 1131.04, minimum area, 1131.05, minimum setbacks, 1131.06, height regulations, 1131.07, accessory use regulations, Section 1131.08, landscaping and screening requirements, and repealing Section 1131.09, development and design guidelines, and Section 1131.10, approval procedures of the codified ordinances of the City of North Canton, to standardize the language and regulations of the district to other zoning district updates that reflect community development goals, increase efficiency in land use. So at this time, I believe Mr. Young to present the item from the city.
Ben Young, North Canton Clerk of Council. I'll start by reassuring you all that we have a newer draft of this ordinance simplified the title down so that it's not quite as wordy. But so basically, over the past 4 years now, chapter by chapter, we've been trying to update and simplify our zoning code so that it's easier for your average person to read and understand. This Parks and Institutional District is just the next chapter to be looked at. So we did make some changes, and I have been forewarned by Marty that you all have some suggestions for me. I will say I'm open to suggestions, and I think Marty is. I'll let President Shroya speak for council as to whether they're open for suggestions. So with your permission, I'm just going to go section by section and talk about what changed, and you can interrupt me when you have something you want to talk about.
Please.
So section 1, the intent. Basically, we just took the 3 paragraphs and condensed them down, or 4 paragraphs and condensed them to 1 paragraph. And throughout this whole chapter, there's a theme we focused in on. What is this district for? And we came up with 4 things that this specific district is for: public parks, public buildings, religion, and education. So that's really, we tried to just write 1 simple paragraph that summarizes that. Okay. Section 2 are use regulations. This is pretty standard language that you see at the start of every district chapter that just explains what is a use permitted by right, what is an accessory use, what is a conditional use, those sorts of things. This language was already in the existing chapter 1131. We did make some modernization changes, like the use is not listed in schedule paragraph. We took a more modern version of that paragraph that we've written for our Main Street zoning code and replaced that paragraph with that more modern version.
Mr. Young, paragraph A and subparagraph A and B says what the letter designation is, either B or C, but I don't see what it is. Under accessory uses.
So we kept the accessory use paragraph that was currently written in the chapter, and I agree with you. Yes, it doesn't. If you look at chapter 1136, which was more recently rewritten, it explicitly says denoted letter A, like the first 2 paragraphs as you're talking about. I would certainly be open if this board would like to recommend borrowing the same accessory use definition from 1136 for here for that clarification. Okay. Next is the schedule of permitted uses. So this was the biggest thing that we wanted to really spend some time looking at in this chapter. And that is because we have a district, a zoning district, dedicated to parks and institutions. But all of the parks and institutions are conditional uses in that zoning district, which is a little confusing. Now, as it's currently written, there is a carve out that if your property is more than 300 feet away from any residential property, then it's a permitted use. But good luck finding a property that is zoned P&I in the city of North Canton and is more than 300 feet away from any residential. So we came back to that conversation about what are the 4 uses that we want this district to have. Public parks, public buildings, religion, education. And so we generally made those 4 uses permitted by right. However, those 4 uses have things that are highly disruptive to neighborhoods if they're built. For instance, if a city builds an auditorium, that's highly disruptive. If a school builds a stadium, that's highly disruptive. So we separated out those sort of sub-uses and kept those as conditional uses. So you'll note that a civic facility for public assembly, which would be your auditorium or your amphitheater, that's kept as a conditional use. Your athletic facilities for a college or a high school, those are kept as a conditional use because they're much more disruptive. Golf courses, public swimming pools. Golf courses, we hear it with Arrowhead all the time. You hit balls off the golf course into my yard. Right? Swimming pools, especially during the summer, they're loud, lots of kids running around, splashing. While we were doing this section, we found that there is a 5th use that is currently in our P&I that we needed to account for still having permission for, and that's residential care facility. So we have 2 residential care facilities in the city that are currently zoned P&I. And so we kept residential care facility in there, but we kept it in conditional use. They tend to have high traffic, particularly in emergency vehicle traffic, and that can be very disruptive. Questions about the schedule of uses?
I just noticed that for the parish residents, convent or other residential use, it is marked as A on the schedule and not C or P, but as we mentioned before, A is not defined, so.
A would be an accessory use, so if you.
It's just not clear that A means accessory
Yes.
use in that, so. It kind of piggybacks off.
You have a K-12 school facility as permitted,
Mhm.
and then the K-12 school athletic facility condition.
Correct.
Why the difference?
Because as I talked about, the sports stadium, auditorium facility tends to be more loud and disruptive to the neighborhood. For instance, Hoover football stadium, you can hear the loudspeakers 3 blocks away. So those are things that we would probably want to spend more time looking at. How far away can you get it from the nearest residential home? What are your noise control parameters? Do you have sufficient parking? Those.
Makes sense.
Okay. Section 4 is building placement. This would be the old sections 4 and 5. And I realize there's a numbering issue in here, but I'll fix that. And we just sort of condensed them and simplified them. So we kept that the minimum lot size is 1 acre. And then we did look at setbacks. And so currently as written, there are essentially 40-foot setbacks across the board. Except for when you neighbor a commercial building and then you have a 20-foot setback. This is probably the part of these changes that Marty and I spent the most time talking about. Because particularly if we think about like a public park, like Price Park right behind. There are a lot of different types of amenities that go in a public park, some of which are more suited to be next to a residential neighbor than others. So the walking trail goes 20 feet behind your house, probably not that big a deal. The playground is 20 feet behind your house, probably a big deal. And then also looking at setbacks from public right-of-ways and the street doesn't care if the track is 40 feet away or 20 feet away. So we lowered generally the street setbacks except for athletic facilities. And you'll note we segmented out athletic facilities and then what is defined as outdoor activity areas. So tennis courts, swimming pools, picnic shelter, the playground, all of the sort of louder park amenities. For residences, we tried to keep a higher setback just across the board. And then we did get, generally speaking, closer on setbacks for commercial property. So that'd be this all other lot lines category.
I have some questions regarding this table. First off, I didn't look back through other sections of the code, but it says setback from for, public streets, setback from R70 from lot lines.
Mhm.
I know in the definitions at the beginning, setback means from the property line, but I didn't know if it may be better to say setback when abutting those things versus from those things. Because if someone's glancing at this table, they would say setback from the public right of way, and they'd say, oh, I just have to be 20 feet from the street, but their lot line is not the street, right?
Correct.
So I don't know if that's the same across the board in our code, but that struck me when I was reading this, just because of these setbacks. But then also the distances for the facilities kind of, I guess I kind of have an issue with. So from the setback from the public street right of way, the 20 feet for general facilities.
Mhm.
So if we go to the height regulations, the max height is 60 feet. So this means you could have a 60-foot building 20 feet from the street right of way.
Potentially, as currently written.
That's currently written. And then if you move, so the same thing in section, the next line down from setback from R70, 50, or R2F
Mhm.
is 20 feet. An R70 setback is 40 feet, an R50 setback is 35 feet, and an R2F setback is 35 feet. So effectively, the houses have to be set back further than a public building.
My draft says 40 feet.
Our draft
The
says
R.
20 feet.
It should be 40.
Okay.
I apologize for any confusion that happened there. But the setback from an R district should be 40.
Okay, that's a good thing. That's what it was before, correct?
Yes,
It was
what it was before.
40 before. But the setback from right of ways, that was reduced, right, from 40 to 20 or?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So that is I guess the main issue on that, my comment when I first looked at it was the 60-foot height, 20 feet from a road edge, effectively, in some areas. And then also the 10 feet from all other lot lines. You could have that same height building 10 feet from another property. Which is probably okay in a commercial setting. If the setback from R70 is 40 all the way around, that's a little bit better than 20, obviously. So I don't know if there's just a way to link. I understand the intent is to make it easier and more conducive for development, but that just seems very aggressive from the 20-foot from that front yard. And I understand if, like, we're closer to downtown with the Main Street district, but if, you know, I don't know if we have any public parks and rec that abut that, necessarily.
This is what we
Yeah.
spent the most time on. Is
Yeah.
If your general
No, that's the
facility-
hardest part, for sure.
if your general facility is a walking trail, 20 feet is fine.
Yeah,
But
well,
if your general
facility
facility is the DLC at Walsh,
yeah, if your
maybe
general
not 20
facility is a park shelter, it doesn't matter if it's 20 feet, right? Because that park shelter is only 10 feet tall. But if your general facility is a new city hall and it's abutted by two R70 district, whatever the case may be, I'm just trying to think of those cases where you're right beside residences and you have this lot, effectively you could have a very large building close to the road, so. I just trying to think about that. I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but that'd be my general comment on that one. And I don't know if there's a way to tie it more directly to building height, right? Like it's direct relationship or whatever, because I know there's gonna be a case where, yes, 20 feet makes sense, but isn't that what ZBOA is for? Is so that we can go that somebody can go there and say, hey, we understand this says this, look at this situation, and that's why it would make sense. So that'd be my comment on that table.
I absolutely understand. So then moving on to the height regulations, we did not change in this draft anything about the height regulations. This was debated, because again, there's a wide turn, right? Because a church building a spire might want to go up to the 60 feet, but most public parks are never going to have anything even close to 60 feet.
I do question that. What's currently the highest structure in the city?
The Hoover back.
Take away the smokestack. The building itself is probably less than 40 feet.
The building itself, I believe, is 50 something. Right over there. Yeah.
I just question it. This is basically only a 5-story building.
The next tallest building in town is the Olivery Tower, which has, I remember my time there correctly, 5 floors. The Hoover building would not be P&I, but Walsh University.
You wouldn't keep it at 60 feet, is what you're saying? Not any higher. For 60.
For P&I, I can see it being low. Now, I wasn't thinking of Walsh University.
Maybe. I mean, Walsh, though, university, that would fall over 1 acre in size, right?
Correct.
I mean, they don't have internal lot lines. I mean, maybe it's a solution of, if you're under an acre, it's X, and if it's over an acre, it's Y. Just a block. Just to cover something like a university where it's not gonna be under an acre. If it is, then it's not, but I agree, yeah, I agree, yeah, it kind of goes back, those kind of go hand in hand, the setback and building height,
Okay. The next section is other site requirements. We, again, condensed two sections into just, here are all the other chapters you also have to go make sure you're compliant with. So signage, screening, off-street parking. We did not keep the design guidelines. They were very generalistic and didn't have much teeth. And from what I am aware of at this time, the city is not trying to become an architectural review board. So we just cut those. So then we have supplemental regulations for campus developments. This was the old section. This is just under approval procedures, section 10, part of. We made it its own section, kept it generally the same, that if you have more than 10 acres and you'd like to call it a campus, you may do a phased development instead of building it all. So this would largely apply to Walsh University, who continually adds new buildings to their campus. Or the school district and their campus on 7th Street. They continually add, over the years, buildings to their campus. And then finally, we just have the standard development plan review language that we have from all of our other district chapters, that you must submit a development plan review and it must be approved by Mr. Van Gundy if it's fully compliant, by you all if there's something special about it, additional use, variance, something like that.
Any other questions for Mr. Young and commission members? Or comments? Anyone from the administration or council would like to speak on to that?
I'd like to thank Marty and Ben for diving into this for us and coming before you to present the information and get your input on it. And I'm glad to hear that you had some questions and concerns from that. Again, I think it's just another step. We're trying to be business friendly, have a sense of transparency, but also a little bit stronger continuity. People want to come here with their building, and we're here to support them, but we also have guidelines we want you to follow and be a part of. Just appreciate the information to hear what is presented by these two gentlemen. Research.
I like the idea you mentioned about potentially separating the height by the acreage. You said that makes sense. But yeah, I think the overall goal is just to simplify the code here. Just obviously it's kind of not very clear when you read it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm glad, I echo the mayor's comments. I'm glad that Martin and Mr. Young went through this and tried to clean it up, because it's such a broad, the hard thing is, as we are discussing, it's such a broad kind of swath of different building types. So try to narrow it down to help would be great for everyone. So it's good. Any other comments from commission members?
I kind of agree with the minimum setback requirements, so, so it's bumping out to 40 feet instead of 20 feet shown for the R70, R50. I think that's a good idea.
Well, at this time, if there's any questions or comments from our audience members, more than welcome to get sworn in and or list your name and address and speak on this on behalf. Okay. So if there's no more questions or comments, would entertain a motion on this if we anyone sees fit.
We're not voting to approve, but this can be, the motion can be approved conditional. Wasn't a move. The conditions as outlined, I would agree with what's been said.
We need to find out more.
Yes, if we want to do that, we can.
So,
So the first comment was the
schedule,
schedule, the accessory use. I think that's what the page we have.
Yes, under section C, we just parallel what is in A and B, we would say, add the words would be noted by the letter A. There might be a couple other adjacent things that need to be modified. Essentially, that's the important point there.
So 1131.02 subsection C, it would be defined. Letter A, or accessory use similar to sections A and B.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 1131.02.
Chairman, we talked about utilizing the language from section 1136. Would you like me to read that paragraph that was referenced during the discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, I am reading from 1136.04, parent C. It's titled Accessory Uses. A use listed in section 1136.05 shall be permitted as an accessory use in a district when denoted by a letter A. Such use shall be permitted as a subordinate building or use when it is clearly incidental to and located on the same lot as the principal building or use. Accessory uses are further regulated in subsequent sections of this ordinance. Obviously, the section reference there would be relevant to the chapter 1131, but
Correct, yep. Yep. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mangum. And then the next item would be select the section, well, we schedule 1131.04, minimum setback requirements. That would be the changing the setback from the public streets, right of ways, and the R70, R50, R2 out district boundaries to 40 feet
in lieu of the 20
in
feet.
lieu of the 20 feet, which I believe Mr. Young, you mentioned, one of those is already 40 feet on the draft, but having both those at 40 feet would be our recommendation there.
Yes.
And then, the next item would be 1131.05 height regulations. And I think our suggestion on that point is tying the height to the lot size of an acre. So under 1 acre, I think, I don't know if anybody has a comfortable number that to be, but if it's 40 feet, definitely tying the above 40 feet to an acre site. Is 40 feet an acceptable condition among commission members?
I'm not sure I'm against that, so,
Okay.
yeah, I think the way it's written, it's okay.
Okay. Well, I would recommend that, well, I think we recommend the 40 feet as a group for that line in the sand per acre, below an acre. And I think everything else, everyone else doesn't have an issue with this nice, concise revision. So I believe those are our suggestions. So with those suggestions on record, I would entertain a motion.
Now I would motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with those conditions attached.
What's that?
We have a motion and a second. If we could do a roll call, Brandon?
Mr. Sarah,
Yes,
Mr. Mahousen,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. LePage,
Yes.
Mr. Dapay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Young, and administration, and Martin, for your work on that. Okay. So, I believe that is the last thing on our agenda tonight. If there is no other new business to be brought forward, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Make a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.